Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today, What's New with Cosential. I'm Courtney Kearney, founder and owner of C. Kearney Consulting, and I want to thank you for taking time to spend the next 30 minutes with me talking about Cosential and some of the new features that they have out. I'm having technical difficulties today, so I will not be sharing my video as I normally do, so it'll just be my voice on my screen today. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A or raise your hand and I will look at the comments if I haven't seen them. The Q&A should be at the bottom of your screen in your tool panel, and we will get started. Again, I'm Courtney Kearney. Thank you again for joining us today. I want to take a minute to point out the free resources that we have on our website in case you haven't seen them. If you head out to ckearneyconsulting.com, we have two areas of interest. One is the events for this upcoming week. We have tomorrow our marketing call for our user group. We're hosting Mike Sweeney as the guest speaker. And then on next Thursday, our CRM users group call. And then I'm doing a part 2 to this webinar on Tuesday, the 15th. Hopefully you can join us for those and you can register on our website. If you also click on CKC Stories, there we have resources, whether it's recaps of events that we have, webinars, or recaps of our user group calls. Feel free to go out there. We are featuring a partnered article or a collaboration article by Stacy Ho if you want to check that out as well. Today we're going to be talking about I'm going to drop in. Can I do that? I have the link to the slides. Let's see if I can. All right, hopefully you all got that link to the slides. They will also be available in the follow-up email so that you can get them that way as well. We're going to be looking at the new color label feature and it looks like we might have a question. Terry, I see that you raised your hand. Let me see if I can maybe unmute you. Oh, it's in the Q&A. Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Looking for the button. It is in the chat. So if you click the 3 dots at the far right of your chat bar at the bottom and then click chat, you should be able to see the link to the slides there. And again, it'll be in the follow-up email. Fantastic. Looking at the discovery for today, we're going to be looking at also the revenue projection grid and the opportunity grid. There's been some enhancements there. And then also the export options, what those 3 little options are whenever you get the drop down. And then some 2 slides at the very end to look at updates and how to check on the status of Cosential. The new color labels, there is a link to this to the support that whenever I push out the final version of the PDF, the link will be live there. So whenever you click there, it will take you to the support center. Right now it's not live, it's just the straight PDF. It's not the interactive version. All of what I'm covering today does have documentation on the support center. So if you do want to go look at further documentation, you can. In the follow-up email tomorrow, the links will be live, so you'll be able to click here in the PDF. So the new color labels for company types, this is a really cool feature that Cosential's given us to give us a visual to indicate what kind of record you are on when you're on a company record. So some of the ones that you see in the background are out of the box for Cosential. So example, the client I have made yellow. You can set this to multi-select, so you can make your client and your owner designations both yellow. You can group your company types now as well. And then of course, using the yes, no fields, you can hide from the drop down. So you'll see like agency here in the background. I have removed that from the drop down, but it doesn't remove it from any of the records that might have already had the agency selected on there, but you can still keep the old, but not allow users to continue to click that moving forward. So what this looks like when you're in the environment, when you go to the record, it will have the company type, the value highlighted in yellow. So this record has been designated as a client, and you'll see that in yellow. Down below it, you can see that owner is also made yellow, and it is designated with the yellow label as well. Now, when you're looking in your search, quick search at the top, and you're pulling up that company, the label does come through on the quick search. The other labels that you can put on, some examples for prospects in green or competitors in a cautionary orange. It looks like we have some questions in the Q&A. You can have multi-select if you want. So if you want two different labels attached to the same owner, absolutely you can do that. Does it carry over to Outlook and Cosential? That is a great question. And we will cover that in part 2 in 2 weeks for the 15th when we demo that. Thank you for typing those in the Q&A. It is multi-select. So when we go into the environment in Cosential, when you're in your value list, you're going to go to company type in the company area. It's the first value list in the company section. This is where you can attach the labels. Now you can only give one color to one value, but when you are on the record itself, so say you want to add client and owner, or I don't know why it would be a client and competitor, but just for the example, we'll say that. So you can see both do show up at the top. So as many as you select would be the colors that would be designated up at the top. Now there is a space bandwidth, so you will get this, but when you hover over it, you can see all the designations. So if we take off one, you can see that 3 will be listed. If that doesn't answer the multi-select question, feel free to drop it back in the Q&A and I can play with it a little bit in the demo account. So back on the value list, whenever you assign a value, you just have to click edit. Now for the architects on the phone or on the webinar today, or those that are creative minded, these are the only colors that we have. We do not have the ability as OFAs to change these colors, add to them. This is what we get. So we are limited to this color palette. Once you select the color, you can click save, and then anything that was selected as an architect or will be selected in the future as the company type of architect will have that blue label up, or sorry, purple label up at the top. Is this something that we could potentially use to identify inactive clients? Absolutely. If you have a company type that is active versus inactive, if you want to have a type that says inactive, then you can absolutely have that color or that company type be designated to a specific color. So looking at how most companies use company type, really this is all over the board. Best practice, we always suggest that your company type be designated for how that company is in relationship to the industry. So what does that company do? Are they an engineering firm? Are they an architect? Are they a contractor? Some of it can relate to how they are to your firm. So they can be an engineering firm that is also a competitor, but most of the time you want it to be about that company and not necessarily how they are in relationship to you. Where this kind of muddies the water is if you start mixing the value list. So I've seen it where we'll do an audit of a company type field and we'll see end user or developer, influencer, decision maker get muddied with the company type, or maybe even details like tier 1 client, target client. You can have those in there, but just know that you need to make it clear what you're going to be using this value list for. Now, if you are in the boat, like Rachel has listed here, that you have a lot of details in here and there's 50 plus options, then it might be good to rely on this grouping so that if you do have like fields, like if you want to designate all of your outside the industry tags in one color, like what type of firm are they? Are they an architect? Are they AE or C? How do they pertain to you in another color? You can get creative with what that looks like, but I don't think that the details or how many options would need to limit you. Now, you might want to limit how you use your colors since we are limited on our color palette. Let me know if that doesn't answer and I can definitely try to re-answer it. All right, so that is the company types and the labels. If we don't have any other questions on that topic, we're going to move on to the revenue projection grid. Again, when this PDF gets emailed to you, you'll have a link to the guide from the Cosential Support Center. So the changes that have been released is the distribution logic. They've now given us the ability to put our own logic on the revenue projections. So the example that I have listed here is a custom bell curve. So if you have researched your own projects and how the revenue is projected across your project, maybe you know that 30% of the revenue gets distributed over the first 25% of the project. And then 50% of the revenue is in that middle 50% of the curve. And then the last 25% of the bell curve only accounts for 20% of the revenue. If that is your bell curve, then you can absolutely enter it here. This is all custom and free text fields. So if you have it nuanced where it's the first 13.3% of the duration of the project is X amount, then you can get as detailed as you want. Now, they've also given us several different saves. So you have save distribution logic. You're not just limited to the custom or the flat distribution. You can now control that and save it. The calculation method has also been updated, so it is now more accurate. It moved from months to days. So the example, if it started on the 15th of the month and ended on the 3rd, it no longer counts the entirety of the month that it started in and counts the entirety of the end month that it ended in. Instead, now it will only count the days of that start month and the days of the end month. So for the example that's on your screen, it will only count the remaining 15 days of May and the 3 days in August so that you can have more accuracy when you are projecting your revenue. Looking at your distribution, you have the option as the OFA to be able to set it to one or many records. Now, when you're first starting out, I would leave it as is, and then as you become more familiar with it, it's frustrating if you do have it set to many because it's easy to accidentally override the distributions that were already there. So definitely be careful with having that many options selected. You can now search for opportunities. You can search for them by name, number, proposal number, client name, and owner name. You can also filter by your dates now. It looks like we have a question. Oh, good question. Is the distribution logic customized by project? No. The logic is whatever you save it for that specific logic. And then if you want to have it based off a project or maybe a project type, so if maybe K through 12 has a specific bell curve, then you can call it K through 12, but it wouldn't be opportunity specific unless you wanted to save logic per pursuit every single time. So I would maybe suggest going the route of a type of logic. So like the example I gave was K through 12 versus a higher education bell curve versus a healthcare bell curve. Then you can apply that logic. Hopefully when I get into the account, it will answer it a little bit better. And if not, feel free to pop another question into the Q&A box. All right, so here we are on our goals module. And then in the tools, I have already selected revenue projection. So this is how you get to the revenue projection grid. Now, if you don't see this in your account, you might need to reach out to your OFA if you're not the overall firm administrator, because you might not have access to the goals grid, or your license type might limit you from having access to the goals area. So if you do have access and you're on the same screen, some things might need to be set up before you can project your revenue for your opportunities. What is needed is a start and an end date. The overall firm administrator controls what dates those are. So if you are the OFA, you can click your firm settings in the middle of the toolbar. And in the revenue distribution settings, that third tab, you control the start and end date. So if you are using maybe the pre-con start and end date or design start and end date, whatever that is that you are using for your projections, those are the dates that you're going to want to use. Again, a start and an end date is required to be able to project. It needs a start and an end point. For these purposes, we've used the estimated start and estimated completion date. And you need to pick what fee field your revenue is sitting in. As we know, Cosential gives us a ton of fee fields, which is great. Here, you just need to point it to which one you want to be able to distribute. In the bottom left-hand corner, it allows for manual distribution or not. If you leave it checked, it means that I can click in here and start to change some of these. So maybe I want to round this up and I want to make it more even, then it will recalculate the remaining distribution. If you don't want it to be manually manipulated, then you can uncheck that as the OFA. Now, if once you've made your changes, you'll want to hit apply. To create those new logics, you would click here. This is where you start to add those. So if I know that in K through 12, it really gets a light start at the beginning, and then it starts to pick up a little bit of steam. It will do the math for you. So every time I click, it changes what I have left and puts it at the end. So if I know that it's 50% for 50% of the remaining project, then it's going to do the calculation because it always wants to keep 100 on both sides, the 100% of the revenue and 100% of the duration of the project. Now, if you get a little type happy and it goes over, it's not going to let you with an error that big. If you're still under, it's going to continue to add it even if you have 0 revenue left. So maybe at the very end, you're finishing it out, or if it's flipped and you get 5% of your revenue at the duration of the 5% of the project, even if you're finished and you're not on site anymore, then you can have a 0%. Just looking at how this is structured, I'm going to have to fix this in order to delete this last. Oh, so you might have seen that that popped up. Let's go back. If I delete this, it's going to say, wait a minute, we're over. You can't for 100% duration on a project. So then I can delete this. So I can save this as a K through 12 distribution. Uh-oh, why are you not going to let me save it? We're at 100%. Well, that is fun. Okay, I have no idea why it's not letting me save it, but we're going to look at our managed save distribution logic. Do you have to set up different revenue distribution settings for different market sectors? No, you don't have to at all. You can absolutely use the out of the box flat curve, or you can have a custom bell curve that you apply to all. You don't have to have. Is this tool only available for opportunities right now? Yes, for the revenue projection piece. And then if you wanted to look at your goals grid, there is a goals projection, but right now there is no projection for the work that you've won on the project side. I think that's a great enhancement request for those on the call. The more people that request the same thing, the higher it gets in the development queue. So I think that's a great enhancement request. So here you can see that I did save the custom bell curve from earlier that was on our slides. So how this works, once you've set it all up and everything is ready to go, once you are on an opportunity, it has to have a start, an end, and a fee in the field. So if you are on an opportunity that does not have a date or a fee field and you try to click the distribution or distribute revenue, even if you pick the logic, it's going to give you an error. So up here, it said you got an error. If you click this, you can see what the error is. There's no start, there's no end, and there's no fee. So if I come down here and I put in a fee field, or excuse me, dates, because I already have the fee field here. Then I can click my distribute revenue. This is where you get to pick your logic. If it's flat, it just means it's going to evenly distribute it across the days of your start and end time. If I want it to be that custom bell curve, I can distribute it here. So you'll see that we went from, I'm going to get rid of this screen. We went from fourth quarter into 2021. Now, my view right now is set here under settings. So if I wanted to look at quarters for 2021, I can also do that by changing that view. So here is my total for 2020. The one that we just did, it goes from quarter 4 to quarter 1. Now, it is that bell curve. If I wanted to change it to the flat, I can distribute it and it will be a flat curve and change it. Now, it might be a little bit easier to see the flat if you're in a month view versus the, let's see, where did it go? Here we go. So the flat fee over the months. And it looks like there's more days in December than January. So we've got a little bit heavier over here, but it's evenly across the days. Oh, it looks like we've got another chat. Right now, no, you only have the option of months, quarters, or years. There is no week view. Again, that would be a good enhancement request to put in. All right, so with our remaining 5 minutes, we're going to look at a change to the opportunity grid that you may or may not have noticed. We no longer have the ability to view 500 records per page. This, sorry, there's a Q&A. Is there a visual of the bell curve with values? No. I know many people have asked for a visual to go along with that, especially for a widget to go along with that. Again, I think that's a great enhancement request. I know that you can use, I'm going to flip back to Cosential really quick. You can use the export and do it, or if you're using like a Tableau or a Power BI on top of this, then that would be a good thing to funnel towards a program like that. But as of right now, no, there is not a visual to go with that. All right, so the reason Cosential took away the view 500 records at a time is because they have given us so many options of columns, and it's great that we have so many columns that we can add to our opportunity grid. And this is determined per firm. You can have a significant, I mean, the majority of them can be displayed on the opportunity grid. What is the downside of that is that the more columns firms display, the longer the load time. And at 500 records with that many columns and that much data, it really was hurting their server time. So for reliability and speed, they had to reduce the number of records that could be displayed. So they took away that 500 option. Now, the page functionality is still there, and you can still view it 20, 50, or 100 at a time. Now, unfortunately, those firms who were using this as a quick way to get their opportunity data into an export, it takes away and reduces it to 100 records. So if before you only had 1,000 opportunities, if you had 1,000 opportunities, you only had to export twice. Because when you export here in the upper left-hand corner, it only exports the amount of records that are being displayed. So now they've limited us to only being able to export 100 records at a time, max. So if you want to be able to kind of recreate the 500 per export, I would suggest creating a report instead of relying on your opportunity grid, because now you have to do it in chunks of 100. It looks like we have a Q&A. Perfect. And this is being recorded. Thank you, Natalie, for joining us. And the recording will be available for the part that you have to miss. Looking at the export, it exports exactly as you see it. So in the bottom right-hand corner, it shows me that I have 27 opportunities. What you'll see is when I export it, it's only going to display the 25 that are viewed right now. Now, it does group it or in the same order because I had it grouped by the stage. So that's where kind of that ease of exporting as you see it. But where that leads me is relying more heavily on your reports. So when you do that and you run the same information through the opportunity reports and you go to export it, I get a lot of questions about, well, what in the world? Which one do I pick? These options are not available to us on any other type of report. So if you go to the projects, leads, contact, company, these options are not there. It's only on opportunity data. So I wanted to take a minute to explain what these are. When you export to, oh, I'm so sorry, I skipped back. For the removing of the export feature from our opportunity grid, since they removed 500 as an option, I would suggest that each of you put in a ticket asking for the ability to export all instead of having to do it 100 at a time. So that is on the support center whenever you go out to look at the reasoning of why they took that option away from users. They have it on their plans, but again, the more people that put in the enhancement request, the higher that will go on their development schedule. So if you want to be able to export all of the filtered results from the opportunity grid, put in that enhancement request. All right, so looking at the options, really what this is in what you are choosing is how you want to see your multi-value or multi-select fields. So for example, when we're looking at categories or firm org, contract type, construction type, that is what you're determining of how you want to see that data. So flat data, everything is going to be in the same row divided by 2 hashes. When you're looking at grouped, each value will be in its own row, but the shared information will be in merged or grouped cells. When you're looking at Cartesian, every value gets its own row and will double, triple, quadruple the amount of rows being duplicated. Now, what this looks like when you're looking in Excel. So this is my flat version. So what you'll see is opportunity 18-001. There are 3 practice areas and 3 offices associated. So when it's flat, it's all in the same row. When you're looking at grouped, when you're looking at grouped, that same opportunity, each value in its own column gets its own row. So this is helpful if you wanted to do something like filter these columns so that you can see, show me all of the architecture, show me all of the aviation. When you go to Cartesian, it gives every value in every column its own. So you'll see architecture now has 3 because each office is associated to architecture. You'll see that aviation has 3 because it needs 3 offices, so forth and so on. So it just depends on how you want to see the information. Now, if there's values in these fields, you'll see that those get quadrupled or, duplicated however many times. So really, that's what you need to start looking at as far as your decisions. If you only want your fields listed once, then you might need to do a flat or a grouped because that is a common field and will be merged. Now, if you're trying to do something that will screw up your merge fields, like create pivot tables, then that might not work for you. So just understanding how each of those functions. Again, when you get the PDF, the slides will have the clickable documentation. So when you click this on the follow-up, it will send you to the support center so you can look at that information. The last bit of information, I know we are over by a couple minutes, so I'm going to go fast. The product updates. If you are not getting the updates, I suggest going out to the support center and clicking product updates, which is in the very middle. Click the all articles and then click follow. That will get you emailed every time they release product update notes so that you can follow enhancements and bug fixes and be notified of that. If you want to check if Cosential feels slow to you or if it goes down, what are the scheduled maintenance dates, you can go to status.cosential.com. You'll need to subscribe in the upper right-hand corner, or you can just go and check it out if you feel like it's moving slow, if you need to reach out because it does look operational, but several of your users are having issues, then you can call support and know what the status of Cosential is. Any additional questions that I wasn't able to get to throughout the presentation? All right, well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I went over a little bit. And I just want to remind you that part 2 is in 2 weeks, Tuesday the 15th. You can register for those who haven't here on our website. We're going to be going over the new Cosential for Outlook features and the new app as well. And it looks like we might have a couple more questions. For your revenue projection, if you need to tweak the view, then it might be how you have it filtered. So I know mine auto filters to the my opportunities. You might need to look at your stages. So you might have your closed stages selected instead of open stages, or maybe your opportunity types. That I would definitely look at your filters if you're only seeing closed. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. There will be a survey after you close out of Zoom. We would love to hear any topics that you have that you want to see in future webinars. You guys have a great Tuesday, and I will talk to you later.